evolutionary relationship of early tetrapod groups remain controversial. Almost certainly will undergo revisions as the new data are reported. Several extinct lineages plus the Amphibia, which contain modern amphibians, from a group called Temnospondyls. This group generally has only 4 digits on the forelimb rather than the 5 typical of most tetrapods. The amphibian arose during the Carboniferous period and later diversified, probably be the early Triassic period to produce ancestors of the 3 main groups or order of amphibians living today: Anura Urodela, Caudata or Urodela, and Apoda or Gymnopilna. Before entering the modern amphibians, let's talk a little about the example of primitive transitional amphibians from Temnospondyls, who become the ancestor of the 3 main groups or order of amphibians living today. One of the ancestors is Ichthyostega, who is contemporary of Acanthostega. Ichthyostega has fully formed tetrapod limbs and must have been able to walk on land. Ichthyostega have a short limbs, but the hind limbs have 7 toes. The number of digits of the front limbs is unknown. It has a tail that is supported by fingers of the fins. The muzzle is short, round, and the roof of the skull is long. Ichthyostega also live in aquatic, but can also crawl to the land. Then let's move on to the 3 main groups or order of amphibians living today: Anura Urodela, Caudata or Urodela, and Apoda or Gymnopilna. The 3 living amphibian order comprise approximately 7,500 species. Most share general adaptation for life on land, including skeletal strengthening. In the ancestral amphibian life history, eggs are aquatic and hatch to produce an aquatic larva from the used skulls for respiration. A metamorphosis follows in which gulls are lost. Metamorphosed amphibians use continuous respiration on land, and many have lungs, which access frugal larvae life and activated for breathing air at metamorphosis. Many amphibians retain this general pattern, but important exceptions include some salamanders that lack a complete metamorphosis and retain a permanently aquatic larva morphology throughout life. Some Anura, Caudata, Apoda live entirely on land. Even the most terrestrial amphibians remain dependent on a very moist environment. Their skin is thin and it requires moisture for protection against destruction in air. Amphibians also require moderately cool environments. As ectotherms, their body temperature is determined by a varies with the environment, greatly restricting where they can live. Cool and wet environment are especially important for reproduction. Eggs are not well protected from desiccation, and they must be shed directly into water onto moist terrestrial surfaces.
The name of the order, Anura, denotes an obvious group characteristic: absence of tail in adult, although all have a tail larval stage during embryonic or larval development. Only genus Ascapus contain a tail-like structure in adults. Frogs and toads are specialized for jumping, as suggested by alternative order name Salentia, which means leaping. And further sample is Lithobates catesbellanus. Characteristics of Lithobates catesbellanus are large frogs reaching up to 20 cm in snout-to-fin length or SVL and up to 800 grams in weight. They have a robust body with a white flat head and smooth skin with no wrinkles, warts, or spikes. Dorsal color is pale green to dark olive and can have brown spots. Ventral side is white, gray, or yellowish. As a sexual maturity approaches in males, the upper abdomen temporarily turns yellowish in color. American bullfrog have conspicuous tympanic membranes, or can called with eardrums. Mature males have tympanus twice is the diameter of eye, while mature females have a tympanus about the same diameter as the eye. Males are also slightly smaller than females and have darkly pigmented thumb pads, in contrast to the more delicate streamlined thumb of the female. Lithobates belanus are nearly always in or near permanent water of swamps. Most larger frogs are solitary except during breeding season. During breeding periods, most of them, especially males, are very noisy. Each male usually occupies a particular perch near water, where he may remain for hours or even days, trying to attract a female to that spot. At times, frogs are mainly silent, and their presence is not detected until they are disturbed. When they enter the water, they dart swiftly to the bottom of the pool and kick the substrate to conceal themselves in a clog of muddy water. In swimming, they hold their forelimbs near their body and kick backward with their well-bent hindline, propelling themselves forward. When they surface to breathe, only the head and forepart are exposed, since they conceal themselves behind any available vegetation. Generally, frog also either remains quite still or jumps into concealing vegetation. When held, a frog may caress its struggle for an instant and then suddenly leave, voiding its urine. A frog's best protection in ability to leap, and in some species, to use poison glands. The neurobates frogs use potent toxin for defense. Next, we are going to discuss about reproduction. Because frog and toad are ectothermic, they reproduce, eat, and grow only during the warm season. In spring, men call out loud to attract women's attention. When the eggs mature, the female enters the water and the male grabs them in process called the amplexus, where the egg is fertilized externally after leaving the female's body. As the female lays eggs, the male releases the sperm on top of egg to fertilize it. After fertilization, the jelly coating absorbs water and swells. The eggs are laid in earth mass, usually anchored to vegetation. The fertilized egg, zygote, immediately begins to develop, with repeat fission, cleavage, and zygote becomes a hollow spur of cell, or can called with blastula. Experience blastula gastrulation and then continue to different from an embryo with a tail bud. Complete metamorphosis within 3 months, whereas bullfrogs take 2 or 3 years to complete. The process continues to develop and become an adult frog with a clear skeleton.
The second order is order Urodela or Caudata. Its name salamander. Order Urodela comprises approximately 700 species of salamander. Example, Notophthalmus viridensen. Salamanders are typical small. Most of the common North American salamander are less than 15 cm long. Some aquatic forms are considerably larger, and Japanese giant salamanders sometimes exceed 1.5 meter in length. Most salamanders have limbs set at right angles to the trunk, with forelimb and hindlimb of approximately equal size. In some aquatic and burrowing forms, limbs are rudimentary or missing. Salamanders are carnivorous of both larvae and adult, preying on worms, small arthropods, and small mollusks. Since their food is rich in protein, they don't strike great quantities of fat of glycogen. Like all amphibians, they are ectoderm with a low metabolic rate. Salamanders demonstrate unusually diverse array of respiratory mechanisms. They share the general amphibian condition of having in their skin extensive vascular nets that serve respiratory exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. At various stages of their life history, salamanders also may have external gills, lung, both or neither gill or lung. Salamanders that have an aquatic larval stage have gills, or larvae, but lost them later if a metamorphosis occurred. Several lineages of salamanders have evolved permanently aquatic from that failed to complete metamorphosis and retain their girth and fin-like tail throughout life. Lungs, the most winter-speed respiratory organ of terrestrial vertebrates, are present from birth in salamanders that have them, and lungs become active as the primary means of respiration following metamorphosis. Also, we normally associate lungs with terrestrial organisms and gills with aquatic ones. Salamander evolution have produced aquatic from that birth the primarily with lung and terrestrial forms that lack them completely. Some salamanders are aquatic or terrestrial throughout their entire life cycle, but the ancestral condition in metamorphic have aquatic larvae and terrestrial adults that occupy moist place under stone and rotted rock. Eggs of most salamanders are fertilized internal. A female recovers in her cloaca a pack of sperm deposited by male on a leaf or stick. Aquatic species lay their egg in cluster or singly mass in water. Their egg hatch to produce an aquatic larva having external girth and a wing-like tail. Completely terrestrial species deposit eggs small, grape-like clusteral underlock or in excavation in soft, moist air, and in many species adults guard their egg. Terrestrial species have direct development. They bypass the larvae stage and hatch a miniature versions on the parents. A particularly complex life cycle occurs in some Notophthalmus viridescens, whose aquatic larvae metamorphoses to from terrestrial juvenile that latter morphosis. The latter morphosis again to produce secondarily aquatic, breeding adult. Many Notophthalmus viridescens population skip the terrestrial red-eve stage, however remaining terrestrially aquatic. Notophthalmus viridescens breeding season began in late winter and lasts until earlier spring. At this time, the female is having with eggs and actively seeking a male. The courtship involves a unique from amplesis. Female are attracted by the male sport and lure them to him by making winning motion with his tail and wiggling, causing an acting order to be released. The male position himself about and forward of the female, gripping her side just behind her forelegs with his hind limbs and rubbing her snout with the sides of his head. Males will deposit a sperm patch on the bottom of the pond, and female will produce to pick up with her cloaca, later using the sperm to fertilization her eggs. Males are often in competition with each other, but rival males who try to break up a pair already involved in eggs places are rarely successful. Sometimes the rival male might drop his sperm pack anyway, and the female might pick up in the pack when courtship with other male is over. Male-to-male courtship is also common. Male tend to eat the sperm packet at the are dropped in the case. Preposition can take several weeks because the female will only lay a few, with at least 30 eggs each day. It's still uncertain whether or not female will lay all of their eggs in a breeding season. However, they do lay between 200 and 400 cycles, jelly several eggs on submerged vegetation each season. As soon as the process is finished, the female will swim as leaving her eggs to survive on their own.
The second order is Gymnopionia or Apoda. This order consists of gymnos meaning naked and opiniosis means snake. It contains approximately 200 species of elongate, limbless, burrowing creatures commonly called Sicilians. One example of this order is Herpole multiplicata. The Sicilian inhabit tropical forests of South America, Africa, India, and Southeast Asia. The Sicilian possesses a long, slender body, small dermal scales in the skin of some, many vertebrae, long ribs, no limbs, and a terminal anus. Eyes are small, and most species are blind as adults. Special sensory tentacles occur on the snout. Because they are almost entirely burrowing or aquatic, the Sicilians are seldom observed. Their food consists mostly of worms and small invertebrates, which they find underground. Fertilization of this egg takes place inside the female's body, and males have producible copulatory organ for delivering sperm to the egg. The Sicilian usually deposit the eggs in moist ground near water. Some species have aquatic larvae. Larval development in other species occurs within the egg. Some Sicilian carefully guard their eggs in the fold of the body. Viviparity also is common in some Sicilians, with embryos obtaining nourishment by eating the wall of the duck.